Welcome to the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian.
And I'm Carrie.
And this podcast is dedicated to making things simple and easy for you in the kitchen. Carrie Brown is a classically trained, world-class chef who has a passion for creating ketogenic recipes that taste better than anything you've ever experienced. But more than that, she loves teaching people how to cook the right way.
And each week on this podcast, Brian and I discuss all the ways you can create awesome keto food that is guaranteed to make you a rock star in the kitchen.
If you'd like to learn more about Ketovangelist Kitchen, you can go to ketovangelistkitchen.com and sign up for the newsletter.
In exchange for your email address, you'll get brand new recipes delivered to your inbox, ready for you to whip up in the kitchen and enjoy with your friends and family.
So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn. You're about to enter the Ketovangelist Kitchen. Hello again, everyone. This is the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian, and she
is Carrie.
Okay. How old were you when you learned how to drive, like by yourself? Like how old in England? Is it like you're learning? You're driving yourself by the time you turn 3, or is it older than that?
I was a very good backseat driver at 3.
Not really the.
I wasn't operating the pedals at 3 though.
Well, first of all, it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that. But second of all, how old were you when you took the car out for a spin legally all by yourself? Wait. What was your first car too? So there's 2 questions that I'm asking you about.
I want to say I was 19, but I could be making that up.
Okay.
I think I was 19. And my first car was a Honda Civic.
Really? Do you remember what color it was?
It was ocean blue metallic with a rag top.
And was it an automatic or was it a standard manual transmission?
It was a standard because I was not in America. I was in Australia. I was living in Australia and
driving on the wrong side of the road. No offense to any Australians.
And driving on the same side of the road as British people.
I stand by what I said. Okay, so my first car was a Pontiac Grand Am that I had in my possession for a grand total of 3 weeks before it got grand totaled. I was turning and
you had it remodeled?
Someone smacked into me.
That wasn't very nice of them.
And broke the car in half. Yeah, it was.
Luckily, it didn't appear to have broken Brian in half.
No, it didn't. No, well, no, I don't think so. I don't remember.
Maybe Brian's spirit was a bit dented.
Well, because I didn't get to where I was going, and I was going to a friend's house, and I didn't get there. So there's a little bit of that. There was a little bit of denting going on there, I guess, with that. But it was also silver. So
my current car is silver. I think it's a good color for a car.
In the United States, I don't know about other countries, but in the United States, it seems like the most I think that I've read this several years in a row that the most popular color is white for vehicles, and that just seems weird to me.
Me too. Weird.
I don't understand that. In the 60s and in the 70s, they started producing some really weird colored cars, and that I like that. Like that appealed to me. And I don't know why they stopped. Why they got so conservative with the car colors.
I just, maybe this is maybe people are going to send me sexist hate mail, but white to me is it's got to be a girl's car.
You won't.
And then my boss went and got a white car, and I'm like, I'm not sure I can ride in it with you, boss. I'm sorry.
Oh wow! Even you didn't even want to take a chance on losing some street cred. That's I hear what you're saying. The only I don't know that I've assigned genders to specific car colors. I have assigned genders to convertibles though. It requires a certain kind of convertible and a certain kind of driver to pull off, because a lot of times convertibles don't seem like, unless you're a middle-aged guy driving it, you shouldn't be in there, because who's going to mess with a middle-aged guy? That's his midlife crisis that you're dealing with right there,
and he should be allowed to have it in peace.
Right, exactly. Hey, so we haven't even gotten on topic yet, which is highly unusual for us, right?
It's totally not unusual. The only time we ever got on topic immediately was once, and that was last week, and I still haven't recovered from that experience.
Yeah. We should fix that.
Because I was just instantly thrown into confusion without the preamble.
Without the preamble, right? Confusion without the preamble, because most confusion is accompanied by a preamble. So, okay, what is it that we're going to be talking about today exactly?
We are going to be talking about thickeners.
Thickeners? Okay.
Thickeners.
So, okay, before we get into that, because I have several questions. I have several follow-up questions. But before we get into thickeners, we need to go over a couple of things. One, first of all, is if you're listening to this and you enjoy listening to Carrie every week explain food stuff, all her keto knowledge, you should go to iTunes and you should leave a review telling the world just how awesome she is, because she's awesome, and it would really help the show. So iTunes, go leave a review. A nice 5-star rating would be great. But if you do, Carrie will read one of them on the air, like she's going to do today. So if you leave a review, it's possible that you're going to hear it read back to you in a fantastic British accent. So that's your cue, Miss Carrie Brown.
My cue?
Yes.
We have a bunch of new reviews. And I just read them all to Brian, and I was laughing gleefully the entire time because
true story.
They're all awesome.
Yeah, she was.
We have the best listeners right here on this podcast. But I'm just going to randomly pick one because they're all good, and I'll get to them all. In fact, maybe I'll do 2 today just because haven't done much of a preamble.
Slow down.
Oh, well, I'm excited.
I can tell.
So, but the one that made me laugh the hardest, which Brian can attest to, was from NK239, who said, "Want to learn everything you need to know about having a ketogenic lifestyle? This is the podcast for you. Want to hear mocking British accents? This is the podcast for you. Want to hear Brian suggest salami for every meal? This is the podcast for you. Want to hear Carrie sit in silence because she has no response to Brian's terrible jokes? This is the podcast for you. Want to laugh and gain a lot of knowledge? This is the podcast for you."
The only problem that I have with that review, which is a fantastic review, who read it? Who gave the review?
It was NK239.
NK239. So
we love that review, NK239. Thank you. That just made my day.
I'm going to assume that NK239 is not that person's given name. I'm going to assume that's just some sort of internet handle, because that just doesn't really roll off the tongue. But NK239, thank you so much for that. I have to take umbrage with one particular thing, and that's
can we place bets on which bit you're taking umbrage with?
I think it's pretty obvious. I have never told a terrible joke. I've never told a bad joke. My jokes are fantastic. So I'm not sure. It almost sounds like you listen to the show pretty regularly, but I'm not sure about that part. But otherwise, everything else is fantastic. So thank you for that. But yes, especially the part where Carrie sits in silence, because sometimes I'm not sure if she's just left. Like I don't hear anything, and I don't know if she's gone. So
yes, you do, because you can see me.
Well, I'm not always staring. Sometimes I'm like writing things down, and sometimes I can't see you. So,
well, maybe the tip is, if it goes quiet, you should look up and see if I'm actually still here or not.
That's what I do. And most of the time, it's me sitting watching you roll your eyes so hard that, you're going to give yourself a migraine.
Oh, actually, yes. There is one where the bears and cubs wanted to know, or the bears and cubs often wonders how many times Carrie rolls her eyes during the recording.
I'll tell you this. There's an average. I mean, there's like anything else. Like we've got a data sample. The average is probably around 7. And I think the maximum that she's ever rolled in one show, I don't know, 15 or 16 times, I would have to guess. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, she averages around 7. So far today, this shows it's been 4. Just so far at this point, it's been 4. So there you go.
Okay, I'm going to read another one.
Okay.
Because this one made me laugh out loud, and it's it kind of helps us with NK239's assertion that Brian's jokes are terrible.
Umbrage. Umbrage.
Fine Arts Dad writes, Brian's bad jokes help keep this podcast lively. Oh, sorry, let me start again. Brian's bad jokes help keep this cooking podcast lively. They usually make me smirk, but occasionally Brian slips and lets the mind behind the jokes show. I always come away with new knowledge. Who knew there was so much to lettuce or salami? Yes.
Okay, so first of all,
Winnie, right there.
Well, okay, so
the only podcast to do an entire episode on lettuce and have people love it.
Here's the thing, guys, gals, folks, listeners, don't encourage Carrie with the lettuce thing. Just, I'm begging you, don't encourage her. Let her. Oh, I don't even know what to say. That's Fine Arts Dad, right? Is that the person who read that or wrote that review?
Yes,
okay.
Fine Arts Dad.
So
I love you. My lettuce-loving heart is just beating just a little bit stronger now.
Well,
thank
okay.
you.
So here's the deal. Whilst I appreciate that and all, I have to take umbrage about the bad jokes thing. I've listened to all my episodes and I have yet to hear a bad joke that I've told. I'm just saying. I think they are they're it's good stuff right there. I'm just saying. So far this has been really motivating for my self-esteem. Thanks a bunch, folks.
Okay. Can I do another one?
You can do whatever you would like. It's your show.
There's another one. There's a recurring theme.
I don't like it. I don't think. Yeah. Okay.
So because Miel152 writes, well, one the subject line for her review was "I'm having what she's having," which was just awesome. But then she writes, or it could be a he, she, Miel152. Carrie, you have opened my food palette to higher heights. Thank you. Brian, sometimes you're hilarious.
Oh, come on.
Keep up the good work. You're getting progressively funnier.
Oh, see, now I get no respect. Now I know how Rodney Dangerfield felt. This is insane.
Who's that?
Oh, never mind. Sorry, I forgot. You don't know pop culture.
No.
Thank you for that. Who read that or who wrote that?
That was Miel152.
Miel152. Thank you for that.
Who is having what I'm having.
Right. And
I suspect that Meal 152 is also enjoying the mind-blowing variety of lettuces that have now bought into people's minds.
I can't imagine anyone is enjoying it. They may have been entertained by it, but I find it hard to believe that anyone would be enjoying it. Okay. So, can we be done with the mockery and the clearly the incorrect assessment of said humor on this?
We may move on.
Okay, then
you have to leave plenty of time for you to crack more bad jokes.
Right. I'm not sure that I will. I clearly there's a disconnect here somewhere. So okay, so we are going to be talking about thickeners today. So that's a topic. Now, this was chosen because apparently okay, let me take a step back. When you are not keto and you don't care about slowly killing yourself with food, there's like one or two primary options when it comes to thickening stuff. And the primary one is flour, and the secondary one is cornstarch or something along those lines. Sometimes tapioca, right? If I'm remembering correctly. But the majority of the time, whenever you thicken something, it's going to be with flour stuff. And obviously that's a no-go on keto. So people have a ton of questions because especially for folks who grew up in the kitchen, they really know how to cook, and they get completely discombobulated when you tell them you can't use flour, and they're like, I don't know how to make anything now, right? If you look at a lot of the French sauces requiring flour to be put into it, people may know how to make all this stuff, but when it comes to thickening it, they get really, really confused. So we're hoping to clarify and take some of the confusion away with thickeners. Now, we've talked a little bit about this topic in previous segments of the podcast, but we're going to spend the entire time today talking about different thickeners and how they help and what you can use them for. So go ahead.
Well, when we did it before, it was kind of I think it was part of a Q&A. So it was like we did this little 5-minute thing, and it's at the 29-minute mark. And so it's not easy to point people to that podcast because it's not about the whole thing. And this is possibly, that and sweeteners are possibly the most asked and confused topics in our fabulous Keto-Evangelist Kitchen Facebook group, which you should all come hang out with us if you're not already. Those two things are the things that appear to cause the most angst. Sweeteners, we did a podcast on that. If you go to Ketovangelistkitchen.com and hit the podcast button at the top, you can find the sweetener episode if you're confused about sweeteners. And this one we're going to kind of do, as Brian said, more in-depth.
Can you combine sweeteners and thickeners and make a sweetener or a thickener? Thickener? I don't know.
No.
Oh, no? Okay. Well, then never mind. Forget it. Whatever,
Fine.
Kevin. Okay, so let's talk thickeners then. So do we have like a definition of any kind of like what a thickener is? Like if someone, okay, so let's say we're not talking to the kitchen veteran, like what is a thickener and why do you need it?
So a thickener is designed to give more body to a liquid.
Oh, like when you say more body, you mean like it makes it heavier, or it actually lowers the viscosity, or what does that mean?
No, it higher the viscosity.
Okay.
It makes it more viscous.
All right. So for folks,
if you start with water as being like the baseline for runniness,
viscosity.
A thickener will, the more it's designed to make things less like water.
It's designed to make things run thicker or feel thicker.
It's designed to make things less wet.
Oh, interesting. So a towel then would be a thickener, right?
Your gravy would definitely be thicker if you put a towel in it.
Can you imagine having to like dry off with a gravy towel like after you get out of the pool? Seriously, like in the middle of the summer, like with ants everywhere, that would be miserable, and mosquitoes. That would be horrible. Or you have like an entire pool full of gravy. And yeah. I'm liking that better, but I don't know. Gravy towel. Oh, dibs on the band name Gravy Towel. I can call dibs again, so yes.
I think you are out of dibs calling.
No, I got it back.
I think you're out. Mm-hmm.
How did I get out? I got it back.
No, you're out. I said you're out of dibs making heaven. Prison.
Oh,
you're
prison.
Out.
Oh, prison. I didn't hear that part. I thought you said I was out of just making dibs. All right. Well then.
I think it was February the 23rd, and I also think we're past February 23rd.
I think we are. So yeah, I called dibs on the band name Gravy Towel. There we go. All right. Now, thickeners make stuff more viscous, or that makes it less runny.
And if you think about why we might want to do that,
why would we want to do that? Why would we want to do that, Carrie?
Well, if you can imagine a nice piece of steak or a nice piece of chicken, and you pour water on it, the water's all going to run off.
Yes, and
you want when you make a sauce, you want something that's going to mostly stay on, not just run off.
Okay, so
it's the viscousness, it's the thick that makes it cling to the chicken and stay on it. So when you cut it, you get a mouthful of yummy sauce with your chicken, rather than having chicken with a puddle of liquid round it.
Right. If you need a straw to finish your steak, then you've either had a really bad accident or you're doing it wrong, is the point, right?
So it makes sauces, things that are thicker are good for, because they stay where you put them. They don't run off all over the place. Plus, there's just something, I don't know, maybe this is just a Carrie thing, but there's just something to me that is just way more satisfying to eat if it's a thick sauce versus a runny sauce, for the most part.
You mean in terms of like a mouthfeel? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I just find it incredibly more comforting, if you like. I feel fuller. I don't know. There's something about thick, creamy stuff that is more satisfying to me than thinner things. So, and it's, I mean, like, maybe this is a daft example, but it's the one that popped into my head. So I like to drink a cappuccino or a latte as opposed to just regular coffee with whatever, with a nut milk in, because the nut milks are thin, and if you make them into a latte, with heavy cream, or you froth it, it's thicker. And I get a lot more pleasure out of drinking that than I do just, herbal tea or something that's just water thin.
So that makes, I have another question. Is there such a thing as a thinner then? If there is such a thing as a thickener, can there be a thinner?
Yes.
Is that another topic of conversation?
No.
Is it similar?
It's called water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it is similar. Okay. So, all right. So the reason that you would want to use a thickener is because you have something that, in terms of the mouthfeel, in terms of the appeal of it, it's not going to work as well. So you want to thicken it up so it basically allows for a better texture. It allows for better accompaniment of the flavor profiles, the whole bit. But it also, well, not just the flavor profile, but it also enhances the flavor of the stuff that you're doing, because when you thicken something, you are displacing the amount of water in it in some way, shape, or form. And when I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but water should be flavorless, and it typically is. And because it's flavorless, you have to add stuff to make flavor happen. So when you thicken stuff, it actually increases the flavor because it starts messing with the water content. Some things remove some water content. Some things actually collect water into like globules, so you can actually taste stuff, right? So
the other example when I think about soups, I am way more excited about thick soups than I am about, like, this is a really bad example.
Oh, good.
But it's the only one that just came to mind is chicken noodle, where forget the noodles. We're miracle noodles. Let's say we've got miracle noodles in there.
Chicken zoodles. Chicken zoodle soup.
There we go. Chicken zoodle soup. You know, that because it's just like thin stock with a bunch of stuff in it. I don't get, but that will give you a completely different experience to cream of mushroom, which is typically super thick. You get a completely different experience just varying the level of viscosity in those two soups. Completely different experience. Or even, chicken zoodle versus cream of chicken. Completely different experience, even though the base is chicken. The thickness, the viscosity of the cream of chicken creates an entirely different product experience to the chicken zoodle.
Okay. All right. So we've established why you would want a thickening agent of any kind. So now I guess we're going to be talking about what are the keto alternatives to thickening agents that people use who are not keto. So what are the primary keto thickening agents, and what do we use them for?
So I think when most people think thickeners, they automatically just think flours of various types. That is only one type, because of course the starches are the most common, but you can also use protein foods to thicken, such as eggs. Eggs are great for thickening. And you can also use, I've forgotten the other one. But you can also thicken by method. For example, if you form an emulsion, like when you're making mayonnaise or salad dressings, you don't really add a thickener, but the act of emulsifying it makes it super thick. So it's not just, you can thicken more than just by adding something that thickens. You can do something to make it thicker, as well as add other ingredients to make it thicker.
Yeah, I mean, so the point...
Did that make sense?
Yes, the point there is that some thickeners will also operate as an emulsifier, but not all emulsifiers will operate... the other way. Some emulsifiers will operate as a thickener, but not all thickeners will be an emulsifier, right? So those are two very different kinds of things. So when we're talking...
But I just want people to broaden their horizons and not think, thickeners means adding a starch, because it doesn't always. You could add a protein such as egg, or you could do something mechanical and create an emulsion which will also thicken. So when thickening is not just restricted to adding a starch.
Right.
And the reason that starches thicken, which is why they're the most commonly used, is because they thicken because the starch molecules absorb moisture and they swell.
Right.
So that's how starches thicken, and that's why they're the most commonly used, but that's how they do it. But don't forget about the fact that egg is also protein, also thickens, because it's very structural. And also when you form an emulsion via whatever means, but in this case mechanical, that also causes things to thicken.
So another protein-based one, now that we're thinking about it, is gelatin. That'd be another one that that's not flour based. It's protein based, but it still is still a thickener. So
it is, but gelatin's weird, and it doesn't just thicken; it gels, and thickening is kind of different.
It's like a super thickener.
But it actually, because if it's a gel, then it doesn't actually run anywhere anymore.
Oh, then I know a lot of gels because they never run. I know a lot of people who never run. No? Different thing?
Whereas if something is thickened, it's still liquid.
Oh, I get where you're going with this. So if you couldn't pour it out of your glass, then it's gelled.
Right. Okay. And I know there's weird concocted chemical gel things that you can eat, but even so, it's not, even though they could still be considered liquid, that's not the kind of thing we're talking about when we're talking about, creating our own bowls of deliciousness in the kitchen. Gels are not really what we're trying to achieve. That's a different topic.
Okay. So, all right. So then, okay. So you had said the thing about flours too, and it's important for people to realize, because they ask all the time, can I use almond flour or can I use coconut flour as a thickening agent? And your answer to them is
no.
That's what I thought. Now, and this is because, like you had just said, the reason that things thicken is because of what they do with the water. And coconut flour and almond flour tend to not really absorb a whole lot of moisture at all.
Actually, coconut flour does.
It does, okay.
Coconut flour is like shredded blotting paper. That stuff is just weird.
I've never cooked with blotting paper, so I'm not sure with it. What
have you never sucked on blotting paper either?
I can assure you that I have not. I'm not.
No,
I don't know what that is.
Coconut flour gives a similar effect.
I don't know what that means, but now I'm intrigued.
Did you not use blotting paper at school when you learned how to write in ink? Did you learn how to write in ink? Am I just like?
I'm not sure that I ever have. I'm not.
Okay, so in British schools, way back when I was a small person, you all start off writing in pencil, and then at some point they think they're like, well, you have to graduate to ink now. You have to write in ink, and pens that come with a little cartridge full of liquid ink that you unscrew the barrel and you plug it on, screw that back on, and you start to write in ink. And you need blotting paper so you don't smudge it. So you write a line and then you have pink blotting paper and you put it on and it sucks up all the spare ink so that then the ink's dry and you don't smudge it.
I have never, ever heard of that.
Really?
Nope. I just learned something. Never heard of it.
There's something on earth that Brian knows nothing about that I do.
I can assure you there's a bunch of things.
The entire universe is suddenly off kilter.
I don't think that's true. But also, I think when I was learning how to write with a pen, it was a ballpoint pen. And there was none of that need for...
Oh, I think that's because you're not British. In British, you learn to write with ink.
Well, there's ink in the pen, in the ballpoint pen.
No. I mean, like ink, liquid ink that comes in a bottle.
Yeah. So, like, you've got a quill, and you're like scratching on parchment.
Well, I'm not that old that we were still using quills, but yeah, ink in a bottle. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. One year for Christmas, when I was 8, I think, my father bought me a set. It was an art set. And it had, colored pencils, colored pens, and all kinds of stuff. And there was a cartridge ink, like Mont Blanc knockoff kind of, like where you had the little ink cartridge that you put in there, and it sort of through osmosis bled to the tip of the pen.
Exactly.
Right.
That's how we learn to write in England.
Right. And I never ever heard of blotting paper though.
So it's pink, and we were all given a piece of blotting paper, and it's pink, and we'd get it in squares about 5 by 5 inches, and you each had your own blotting paper, and you would just, if the ink wasn't drying fast enough and you needed to close your book, then you just press the blotting paper on, and it took the excess ink off, which meant that your page was then dry. And then you could move on.
And so what we're saying is that coconut flour operates very similarly to this.
Yes.
So coconut flour will improve your handwriting. Is that what we're saying?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed the point. All right. So coconut flour is not a good thickener. Neither is almond flour, but for different reasons.
Coconut flour would be better than almond flour. However, the basic principle that Brian was sharing was that starches work because they absorb a lot of liquid, and so they swell. Almond and coconut are not starches, they're fats. So their ability to absorb moisture and swell is very much reduced. In the case of almonds, it's like zero. It doesn't work like that. Coconut does absorb more, but I have never had consistent results with coconut flour, and so therefore it's off the table anyway, because if it's not consistent, then that's not the way to be a good cook. You want something that's consistently good. Coconut flour is kind of random in its ability to thicken. You also need a ton of it, which means that things end up kind of coconutty, and most people don't want that. It's also, it's not a powder. So you end up with a grainy, you can taste, you have that grainy texture if you try and thicken with coconut flour. You're not going to be happy with the results from coconut flour.
All right, you heard it here first. You're not going to be happy if you try that.
And we exist, particularly me, I exist for you to be happy with your kitchen adventures. Right. I want you to be happy. I don't just want you to have kind of, mediocre, oh, well, that was okay results. I want you all to go in the kitchen and come out and be a rock star.
Yes. Rock stars across the board. That's what we're looking for.
Because you can. You just need to know a few tips and tricks, and then you can all be rock stars.
All right. So
starches, and this is a very, very, very common question on the Facebook group. So I'm going to run down the things that people get confused about. The starches that are most typically used in regular cooking are corn flour or cornstarch, arrowroot. A lot of people think that arrowroot is okay for keto, and I think that was a rumor put about by, I think, the paleo community, because I think paleo people are okay with arrowroot. Or maybe it was the low carb people or something. Anyway, arrowroot is a starch. So right. Arrowroot is not okay, but I understand why people get confused, because in a lot of the paleo low carb blogs, out of desperation, that they've used arrowroot. So people assume that it's good. It's not. Arrowroot, no.
Okay.
Ground rice is another one that is used, but I think most keto people know rice is not okay, because rice. Also, tapioca and semolina are made from wheat. So neither of those things, tapioca, nope. Semolina, nope, none of that. But arrowroot is the thing that people get most confused about, and no arrowroot.
All right. Now,
so those, and obviously wheat flour is the other thing that right. people use for thickening. None of those things we get to use. So as the majority of things use starches to thicken, we need to find something else. And there are 3 that I use.
Okay. And so if I remember correctly, and I'm not guaranteeing that I do, but you have 3 that you use, but they're not interchangeable.
It's very grey. There are some circumstances in which they are interchangeable. If you wanted me to give you a black and white definitive answer, I would have to go with no, they're not interchangeable.
Okay, so then if push came to shove, that would be your answer?
If push came to shove, to ease the confusion and the complication, no, they're not interchangeable.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. That's what
if you have a recipe that says guar gum, just use guar gum.
Okay.
If you have a recipe that says xanthan gum, just use xanthan gum. And if you have a recipe that uses konjac flour, just use konjac flour. You will save yourself a lot of angst and failure. And as I say, this is not the place where we want you to fail. We don't want you to fail. We want you to be successful. And if you just get yourself a little tub of guar gum and a little tub of xanthan gum and a little tub of konjac flour, you will be prepared to thicken anything successfully.
All right, so we gave it away, right? We were gonna list them off, so we kind of gave away what the three were. But let's start with the I won't say favorite, but the primary one, the one that you use the most. Which one do you use the most?
If we're just talking about thickening sauces, so I'm primarily gravies, cheese sauces, savory sauces, that kind of thing. Absolutely, hands down, the best thickener is konjac flour, which is also known as glucomannan powder.
Okay, so glucomannan, konjac, and I think we've established that is neither kojak nor cognac.
Right.
Konjac flour.
Konjac.
And that's not, you're not going to find that in your typical grocery store unless you live in a very metropolitan area. So you may have to buy that online, or you have to go to like a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's.
The Trader Joe's do not have konjac.
Okay.
Yet, although they're adding cool stuff all the time. The best place to get it and the most cost-effective place to get it is just to order it from Amazon. Now brand is a very good, very reasonably priced brand. And just to be clear, you're looking for the flour, the powder. You can get konjac or glucomannan in capsules. And the reason you can is because there was a time where glucomannan was used in the supplement industry as a appetite suppressant because konjac swells and it's a fiber. So it added, people used to take glucomannan capsules to give themselves that feeling of being full and also to increase the fiber. The capsules is not what you want. If you go into a store and that's all you have, what you need is the powder. Now, as I say, Now brand is what I use. It's very reasonably priced. You can still get konjac locally. If you have a super supplements, they typically have konjac flour or glucomannan powder there. But also Whole Foods, I'm not sure. I don't frequent Whole Foods.
I believe they do.
PCC, which I don't know how widely PCC is. We have them in the Northwest. But you'll find it in the supplement department. You'll find it with the vitamin C stuff and all of those. The supplement department is where you will find konjac flour or glucomannan because it hasn't kind of made the mainstream baking aisles like guar gum and xanthan gum are now popping up everywhere because people are demanding them. Konjac hasn't made it into that rank yet. But if I have anything to do with it, it will soon because konjac is hands down the best thickener to replace cornstarch, wheat flour.
Yes, and that's all. And Carrie's on a campaign to get konjac flour in everyone's pantry. So. And
just to be clear, the reason for that is that you will have better results if you use konjac flour. That is I'm not affiliated to the konjac flour people or anything. I want you to have the most delicious, most successful experience in the kitchen. konjac flour will help you do that, which is why I'm so annoyingly typing on every Facebook post, use konjac.
Right. She's not going to be satisfied until everyone's using konjac all the time.
But really, seriously, the only reason I do that is because you will have better food.
Right.
And that's why I exist.
Okay, so konjac is kind of the main one that you like the most. Would you say it's the most versatile, or are they basically all three of them essentially the same in terms of their versatility?
No, no.
Okay.
Konjac is better for straight with cornstarch, with the pure flours that you would use to thicken your gravies, your hot sauces. That's what konjac is good for. You do need heat. So konjac is not good for cold applications. It's best for hot applications. It is particularly much, much better than the other two when it comes to dairy-based sauces, like cheese sauces or guar gum and xanthan gum will make dairy-based sauces gluey slimy in a heartbeat, and that's nasty.
Say that again.
Guar gum and xanthan gum will, if you use too much, which is easy to do because you use so little, they have a tendency to make hot things slimy or gluey, which is horrible. It's a horrible texture. Konjac flour doesn't do that. It's more apparent with dairy-based sauces. So in your cheese sauce, it's super apparent with guar gum and xanthan gum. Your sauce becomes slimy. Konjac doesn't do that.
And I can attest to that too. You also don't want to put a whole lot in. Especially when
you use a very small, and so you shouldn't get excited about the price of konjac flour because you use a tiny amount. That tub will last you a very, very long time. But as I say, more importantly, you'll be thrilled with the results, and so therefore the cost becomes less of an issue because you're so happy. You're not having fails. You're not throwing food away because you can't eat it. You're not having any of those issues. The other thing about konjac when you use it in hot sauces and gravies is that it reheats perfectly the next day. So you can make something with a lovely sauce thickened with konjac. You can eat half of it. You can put the other half in the fridge, bring it out for lunch or dinner again tomorrow. Heat it either in the microwave. I don't recommend that, but either in the microwave or in the oven. And that sauce will reheat exactly like it was the day before. Whereas konjac and guar gum do not reheat nearly as well. They tend to leak. So they release some of the liquid that they were holding. And so you tend to get a watery and or semi-gel sauce rather than the sauce reconstituted as it was the day before. If that makes sense.
I was going to ask you that if something made with konjac would reheat well enough, but you just answered it. So there you go.
It does. And this made me particularly happy because there's just me and my kids, my furry children, and so I will often make a recipe for 4 and then have to reheat it another 3 times. So reheating of sauces is very important to me because I don't want to eat a gel/leaky sauce from the day before. Konjac, I don't have that issue because it reheats as if I just made it.
Okay. All right. So if konjac is best for heat, then I'm assuming that guar gum and xanthan gum, they are best for not heat.
Okay, so xanthan is also best for heat, but not in sauces. Xanthan is best for providing structure to baked goods.
Okay, so guar gum is okay for heat, but not sauces.
Xanthan
Xanthan is good for heat, but not sauces.
Right.
All right. And guar gum is good for baked goods.
No.
Okay. Then
Nope.
start over.
Xanthan is good for heat, but not in sauces, in baked goods.
Wait. So xanthan is good for heat, but not in sauces and,
right.
And baked goods?
It is good in baked goods.
Okay, so we're talking strictly, so there's no guar gum here. It's all xanthan that we're talking about. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so xanthan is good for heat, not in sauces, but it's still good in baked goods.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why it's not great for sauces, because it's the main point of xanthan is providing structure.
Okay, so when you say it's not good in sauces, but it's good it's good with heat, what would be an example of a food that you're going to make that requires heat but isn't a sauce?
Baked goods.
Okay, so it's basically just good in baked goods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can. Okay, so yeah, for clarity's sake, we can just say that it's just good in baked goods, right?
Right.
Okay.
The reason you use, and I think that a lot of people out there are confused about what it actually does.
Okay, so what does it do?
It provides structure. So the reason you use it in baked goods is because it gives you a firmer crumb. So when you don't have wheat flour, which has gluten in it, to give you, so there's air created, the flour, whatever, your muffin rises, the gluten in wheat keeps it there. It provides the structure to stop the thing collapsing when it's baked. Xanthan mimics not as well, but it provides the structure that is not there once we've taken the wheat and the gluten out. Xanthan provides at least some of the structure that we don't have in almond flours and other nut flours that we use in place of wheat flour.
Okay. All right. So xanthan is good for baked goods.
Yes.
And it
for
does,
providing structure to baked goods.
All right. So what is guar gum good for then?
Guar gum is magical. Guar gum is good for cold applications, and it's incredible. And guar gum is also an emulsifier, so two things. Emulsifiers are where you've got fat molecules and you've got water molecules in your whatever it is you're making. An emulsifier will provide a way to keep the fat and the water from arguing with each other and separating. So it keeps the fat and the water together to give you a smooth, cohesive thing.
So what would be an example of a cold food that you would want to thicken?
So, for example, if you make a smoothie.
Okay.
Guar gum, just a little bit of guar gum in a smoothie and a lot of smoothies, it's a spinach base. If you've got a bunch of spinach leaves in there, you'll know that after they're never really smooth, and after a very short time of having made it will separate out into the water and the spinachy bit and any fats you've got in there. A little bit of guar gum added in the last 5 seconds of blending your smoothie, and you will have something that is akin to a glorious, creamy, smooth milkshake. And that's the emulsification action of guar gum. It also thickens, so you end up with a thick smoothie, but also one that will not separate. You can make a smoothie with guar gum in it and leave it in the fridge, and it will still be exactly like that the next day. There'll be no separating out.
What about ice cream? Do you put guar gum in ice cream as well?
I put guar gum in my ice cream. Guar gum has magical effects on both thickening and also emulsifying in ice cream. and it also helps prevent crystals being formed. Because nobody wants crystally ice cream.
No, it's horrible. It's the worst. You know what I hate about grocery store ice cream? Because it's really a crapshoot. Like back when I ate ice cream, when you go get a pint of ice cream and it looks fine, but when you take that first spoonful and it's full of crystals because it had melted either in the truck or in the warehouse or whatever, and they just stuck it back in the freezer and it froze back up, it never has the same structure again. So crystally iced cream is really horrible. I don't like it.
So that's a good point, actually, to talk about ice cream, because there's been a lot of good furore on the Facebook groups this week, because a lot of people have discovered my ice cream cookbook, and they are discovering that it is possible to have ice cream that is scoopable like store-bought, premium store-bought brands, wow, and have the exact same texture as, the regular carby horrible ice cream you used to eat. It's possible to have that in a keto ice cream. So there's been a lot of excitement, and actually one lady who writes articles for Brian and who is also in our Facebook groups has been making a new flavor from my book every day. And one of the things that makes them magical is guar gum. So people have been getting very excited about that. The other good thing about guar gum is that if it's in ice cream, as Brian was saying, with my ice creams, you can melt them and then just rechurn them. It will be exactly the same as if it had never melted.
All right.
So if you do have a situation where, I don't know, your freezer breaks and your ice cream all melts, or somebody leaves it out the freezer or something, you just rechurn it. It's all good.
All right. So once again, Carrie Brown saves the day. All right, so those are the three main thickeners that you use and that you talk about using. So there's konjac flour, which is for heated sauces primarily, and then there's,
which is going to be for most people. But when they go on the Facebook group and they say that I need a thickener instead of starch, that's going to be the answer. Is konjac.
I think it's important too that people understand when we're talking about sauces, gravy is one of those things that's in that category, right? So
yes,
it's all the same. Like we're talking about thickening a sauce, we're also talking about making a gravy. So folks are, you've cooked some turkey or chicken or whatever, and you want to make a gravy out of it, or beef or whatever. This is, this thickener would be the one that you would want to use to make sure that you do it right. Now, the question that I have for you, and you may have answered this already, and maybe I missed it, but is there any kind of flavor to konjac flour that you have to compensate for, or is it basically just flavorless?
No, it's flavorless. And I actually had this question on the Facebook group yesterday that somebody was like, but miracle noodles are made of konjac flour and they have this weird texture and they have this flavor I don't like. So is that the same true with konjac flour? And it isn't. You can't taste konjac flour. You can't taste it, and it thickens. It doesn't give the weird miracle noodle texture. So don't worry about, I hate miracle noodles, so I can't use konjac. It's a completely different product, even though it's made of the same fiber. It's a completely different product. You don't need to worry about that.
All right. So
the other thing, actually, just talking about guar, it just reminded me of one reason you don't want to. Guar is really, you don't want to think of guar as your corn flour or your wheat flour or your arrowroot replacement. It's just don't think about it in terms of with heat. One of the reasons is that guar is kind of odd in that if the pH is wrong, it will thicken and then it will unthicken. So guar only thickens well within a small pH range. So if you've got something that's, acidy, it ain't going to work. The other thing about guar is that it'll thicken up to a point, but if you get it hotter than that point, or it's hot for too long, it will unthicken. So it'll go thick and then it'll go thin again, which is, not what we want. And most people don't know that. So then they follow other people's advice and they use guar to thicken, and then it's all great. And then suddenly it's all thin again. And it's just like, wait, what happened? It was thick. Now it's thin. What? That's why. That's just a guar idiosyncrasy, is that too much outside of a middle range pH, or too much too long heat, and it will actually unthicken. So it's just one more reason why guar heat just don't.
Would you call that a bad guargum stance? No? Okay.
Oh, that wasn't a bad joke at all. No, people, reviewers, that was not a bad joke. I just wanted to clarify.
I have never, ever told a bad joke. Okay, so...
And I haven't finished. I keep thinking about things with guar gum. The other thing about guar gum, which is magical, is it helps keep things in suspension. So it will stop things sinking.
Like a boat?
You'd need a lot of guar gum to stop a boat sinking.
Okay.
But the theory, you're right. So, for example, in my soup recipes that have big lumps of things,
like,
you don't want the big lumps of things to sink to the bottom.
What's a big lump of thing in a soup?
Like the chicken, the creamy chicken and mushroom soup.
Okay.
You don't want the lumps of chicken and the lumps of mushrooms to sink to the bottom.
Okay.
Guar gum is magical at keeping big lumps of things suspended in a liquid.
Okay.
So, because some people are going to go, wait, what? You said don't put guar in hot and blah. So you'll see in my soup recipes that in some of them there's guar gum, and in some of them there's konjac as well. The konjac is there to thicken. The guar, in a very small amount, because heat does weird things to guar, in a very small amount is what keeps the chicken and the mushroom bits up, not all sunk to the bottom. So the other magical thing about guar gum is it keeps things suspended, and that's part of its magical emulsification powers.
Part of its charm.
Part of its charm. Okay. I love guar gum used in the right way.
Right, okay. So, but we loathe it when it's not used properly.
You'll just get sad results, and I don't want that for you.
No. Far be it.
Okay. I also wanted to cover, before I forget, when we get this question on the Facebook groups, what can I use to thicken? We get a whole boatload of other suggestions. And I just wanted to run over what they are and why you're not going to have a good result if you use them.
Okay.
So not just what you should use, but also what you shouldn't use.
Why you should avoid all the other things.
Right.
All right.
But really, the easy answer to this whole podcast is buy guar gum, xanthan gum, konjac, and learn the 3 circumstances in which you use each, and then you'll never have thickener woes again.
No more thickener woes.
Because thickener woes are dull.
Are they?
And unnecessary.
Yeah, they're unnecessary. You should never have a woe that originates from a thickener.
So some things that I've seen are cream cheese. I had cream cheese. Cream cheese is a thickener. Cream cheese is not a thickener.
It is delicious.
It is delicious. So it's not always bad to add cream cheese. However, if you want a thickener, you will be disappointed. So I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying don't think that it's going to do one thing when it's not. So cream cheese, yes, if you add something thick like cream cheese to something that is thinner, the mass is going to, of course, be thicker, but not because what you had originally is being thickened.
Say that again.
Does that make sense?
Say that one more time.
I mean, if you add, this is just kind of sciencey. If you add a thick thing to a thinner thing, and mix them together, the resultant mass is going to be thicker.
Okay, right. Just by averages, right? Just by the law of averages.
But not because the cream cheese in this instance has actually thickened anything. That's just, what happens when you put a thicker thin thing with a thinner thing and mix them together.
That's a mouthful right there.
Right? But it's not actually thickening it. However, as Brian mentioned quite correctly, it will taste fantastic.
Right.
And it will make it very, very creamy, but it will only be marginally thicker. And not because the cream cheese is thickening anything.
It'll be heavier.
It's thicker because the cream cheese is thicker.
Right. It'll be heavier, but it won't necessarily be thickened. Right.
Right.
Okay. What's another one?
Butter.
Okay.
Cream. Again, yum. Will make things taste fantastic. But unless you also, particularly with cream, bubble it a lot, simmer it for a long time to drive off the water, cream in and of itself does not make anything thicker.
Cream in and of itself does not make anything thicker, right? Is what you're saying.
Right. But if you bring it to if you add the cream, bring it to the boil, and then simmer it to drive off the extra water, then eventually your sauce will be thicker. But that's not the cream, that's the driving off of the water.
Okay.
And that takes a long time, and that's kind of boring. And you can kind of get to the same place, but not for gravies and the kind of sauces that we're talking about.
Okay, what's next?
Reducing, same thing, really. You can boil anything to drive the moisture out. It'll take a long time. Eventually, you'll end up with something that's thicker. But as I say, that takes a long time and is just completely unnecessary. You also end up with a lot less volume than when you started with, which is usually not what you want. You don't normally want to reduce your gravy to half the amount. You want to keep the same amount and make all of it thicker, which is why you would use konjac instead of reducing it.
Right. So yeah, you don't want a small amount of very concentrated gravy. You want a normal amount of
thickened gravy.
Yeah, evenly flavored thickened gravy. Gravily.
Right.
Okay.
Eggs will thicken.
Okay, hold on. Before you go on.
Okay.
Are you talking about egg whites, egg yolks, or does it matter?
It does matter.
Okay.
I am talking about whole eggs.
Okay.
Or just egg yolks.
Those are two very different things.
Those are two very different things. Both will thicken by virtue of the fact that there's protein, but they're tricky to cook with. You will probably have a fairly large fail rate. They need a lot of babysitting. And so unless you need the egg in there for some other reason, thickening with konjac flour is just a whole lot easier. Egg yolk, incidentally, is also a brilliant emulsifier. And egg custards are fantastic, but again, they take a long time and it's easy for them to go wrong. So I would never suggest egg as the flour alternative or the cornstarch alternative.
Right, it has a completely different function, right?
It does have a completely different function. These are just things that people on the Facebook group have suggested. What am I missing off the Facebook group? Oh, and some other people just say, just blend it. Typically, just blending it will not markedly change the thickness.
Just blend it, meaning throw it in a blender or put an immersion blender in it?
I assume one of those two. You either put an immersion or put it in the blender and blend it. That does not in and of itself make anything thicker. Also, if you have something that you're trying to thicken that isn't smooth, if you put it in a blender, then it's going to be smooth. So, I mean, if it's like a meat sauce, if you've got a meat sauce that just needs some thickening up because it's, sometimes, a meat sauce can be a bit liquidy, then you can't put that in a blender to thicken it, because then you'd end up with pureed ground beef, which would not be what you're trying to get at all.
That would go back to the finishing your steak with a straw thing that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So I'm trying to think of some of the other responses that people offered up for thickening. I think that's covered it.
Okay.
So those are all things where you're probably going to end up wasting time and money and not end up with the result you want. So once again, get yourself some konjac, get yourself some guar gum, get yourself some xanthan, learn when to use which in a nutshell is guar for cold things, almost always, few exceptions, xanthan for adding structure to hot things like baked goods, and konjac or glucomannan for your hot sauces, meat sauces, the majority of things where you would normally use cornstarch or corn flour, arrowroot, that's where you would use konjac. So of all the three, you're going to use konjac way more than the other two.
All right. So buy the three, figure out when they're supposed to be used, and you'll save yourself some time, money, and frustration, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
So be a kitchen rock star.
As we have been advertising, you will be. All right. So you know what that means, right? It is Motivation Monday. And guess what we're talking about today? What's our Motivation Monday today? Our Motivation Monday today is there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And this is about actually taking action in your life, your journey, whatever you want to phrase it as. So just because you know what the right thing to do is doesn't mean you necessarily are going to do the right thing. And if you want to find success, you're going to have to do the right thing. And we talk about this all the time in many of the Facebook groups. So it's not enough just to know stuff, because there's a difference between knowing where to go and how to do it, and and then actually doing it. The knowing how to do it doesn't get you anywhere. It's the doing it that's going to get you somewhere. So what is your take on it?
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Okay, that's a little bit different. Explain yourself.
Yeah, it is a little bit different, but for me, that when you said when you opened it up, that was what sprang to my mind. Was I think we all know what the right thing is, but that isn't what's going to get us there.
Okay.
Having the intention is not enough. You actually have to act on the intention. I mean, having the intention is great as long as it's a good intention. That's awesome. But you're going to end up not where you want to be unless you actually stop just intending and start doing.
Okay, so the whole takeaway, the whole big idea there is knowing what to do and doing it are two very different things. So it's important that you not only know, but then you take action and you do it. And that includes remembering your health, remembering your success, your reasons for why you're choosing to do this, and keeping them at the forefront of your mind all throughout the week. So as you go forth this week, that's your thought, is knowing what the right thing to do is not the same thing as doing the right thing. And doing is more important than just knowing.
But bear in mind that you can have lots of things on your to-do list, lots of things that you know are the right thing to do. And you can very easily get overwhelmed, particularly if you're starting this as a new lifestyle. It can be overwhelming. You don't have to do it all at once. You could pick 3 things this week off your knowing what to do list. Pick 3 things and just put those into action. And then next week, pick another 3 things. And then you'll find, 2 or 3 months down the road that you're acting on all of these things. But because you kind of added 3 new things a week, it stopped being so overwhelming. For me, I know that overwhelming can lead to procrastination when nothing gets done.
Right, and that's a good point too, right? Like one of the main reasons we procrastinate is because we see a huge mountain, as opposed to, a few steps that you have to take in order to start climbing the mountain, and it's too intimidating to actually want to tackle that huge giant thing. There's a common phrase of, how do you drink the ocean? It's just one spoonful at a time, right? And if you can see the spoonfuls individually, it's a whole lot easier for you to manage than if you're looking at the entire ocean, thinking that you've got to take care of it at once. So breaking it down, finding your goals, having your list of to-dos, whatever it is, compartmentalize them or stratify them, or however you want to phrase it, into smaller, more sufficient and easier to digest chunks, and then go forth and do it.
And for the kitchen, so maybe for this week, just pick 3 new to you products and get those this week. You don't have to go out and buy the entire food list. Just don't be overwhelmed by it. Just pick 3. And then in the kitchen, just pick 1 recipe that you've seen somewhere that will help you. Just 1 new recipe. You don't have to be an expert at all of them all at once. Just make 1 new recipe a week. And then, in a few months, you'll find you have this whole repertoire of delicious recipes that you can use, that you're familiar with. You don't have to do it all at once.
I would piggyback onto that to say that you don't even need to pick a new recipe every week. You can choose to perfect 1 recipe week after week until you've got it down, until you can do it. And for me, a lot of the fun for me was, when you're first learning it, you have to be told exactly the amounts of all this and that and the other. And after you do it for a while, you don't even have to measure stuff anymore. You can get a feel for what's good, what's bad in this particular recipe. And once that kind of muscle memory, for lack of a better phrase, has kind of kicked in, it makes it a whole lot quicker, fun, easier, and you can start experimenting then. So if you're one of these people who doesn't really, gets overwhelmed by more and more and more, then pick the same recipe and perfect it every week, make it better every week. And then, once you've got that to the point where you're just like, yep, nailed it, then move on to the next one. All right. Yep. So that's Motivation Monday for this Monday. All right, so what's the big takeaway on thickeners for the week?
Guar gum, xanthan gum, konjac flour.
All right, so konjac flour, xanthan, guar gum. I did it in the reverse order. All right, so go get them, learn when to use them. It'll save you time, trouble, and headache. And forget all the other stuff.
Yes.
All right, then. Well, that was easy.
And konjac should be your go-to for most instances where you're trying to find something that isn't corn flour or wheat flour, tapioca, arrowroot, or another starch.
All right, so here's another thing that we didn't touch upon that I want to make sure that we actually overtly state. If you're looking at a recipe that is not Carrie's recipe, someone else's recipe, and it says it says to have a thickener that's not one of those 3, here's where the critical thinking thing comes in. If that recipe is a baked item, what do you go to? If that recipe is like a hot sauced item, what do you go to? If that recipe is a cold item, what do you go to? Right? So instead of being confused, like, I don't know what to do, we've given you categories that work best for each individual kind of thickener. So you can now take those categories and use them correctly, or use the correct thickener for each one of those categories. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? So you can start rewriting recipes now based upon what Carrie's told you.
The other thing, and I'm going to focus on konjac because that's the one you want to use the most. You don't start, if you're converting a recipe which has, say, cornstarch in it, don't start with a 1-to-1 swap cornstarch for konjac.
Right.
Start with a rough guide is half a teaspoon of konjac per cup of liquid, or per 8 fluid ounces of liquid for those not using the cup system. So 1 cup, 8 fluid ounces, half a teaspoon of konjac. Start with that. And then if you want it thicker, because people have different ideas about how thick they want their soup or their gravy or whatever, start with half a teaspoon per cup or 8 fluid ounces. And then if you want it thicker, just go up another half teaspoon or even a quarter teaspoon. Don't convert corn flour to konjac.
Yeah, that'd be bad. That'd be really, really bad. Okay. Well, there we go. I think that just about covers all of it. And all right.
Happy thickening.
Yes, happy thickening. All right, Carrie, then I guess we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
And that'll do it for this session in the kitchen. Go get yourself some thickeners. Try them out. They work. All right, if you want to connect with us on social medias, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Keto Van Kitchen on Twitter, Ketovangelist Kitchen on Instagram, and the Facebook group, Ketovangelist Kitchen. Leave us a nice rating and review because the world needs to know how awesome Carrie is. So tell the world how awesome Carrie is. And until next time, keep being awesome. Powered by ketones.